6:01.
You're live.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Welcome, everybody, public, those who are before us, board, our audience at home, although with Terry not here, his grandchildren probably are not watching anymore, so I'm beginning to think our ratings have slipped pretty well. So, so this is the July 16th meeting of the Planning Board. I'd like to start things off on behalf of the board and welcome our new director. Thank you. Wow. All right. Call to order and roll call.
Thomas Callahan.
Present.
Rupert Friday.
Here.
Jerry Burnetto.
Here.
Dr. O'Neill.
Here.
Mark Brady.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have 5 members present.
Okay. Administrative matters, I'll take that as anything administrative we need to deal with?
No.
Okay. And, we'll go to approval of the minutes. I'll leave it to my content directors. Doc, Rupert, any questions on any of it?
Well, Heidi's doing better than ever. She was always great, but
All right. So do I have an?
wait.
But she's not doing that good. What do you got?
Chairman,
June 5th.
on page 3
Of June 5th?
of June 5th, D1, which speaks to the recommendations for the roadway connections. I think an important point that was made during the discussion was that there'd be a gate or barriers like I think you explained on 138 URI to prevent through traffic, and I think it would be good to add a sentence to that effect.
A sentence where you would,
Yeah, so the key thing was, for us anyway, was that it was an emergency access, but that would also be gated or some sort of obstruction so that general through traffic can't go through, and it would be only accessible through DPW, fire, emergency, and police.
I think you mentioned walkers and people just wanted to walk from.
Yeah, walk and bike riders can get through it, but keep through traffic out. Everybody comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Motor traffic.
Motor traffic,
Yeah.
vehicles.
Yeah.
All right, anything else? All right, do I have a motion on June 5th minutes?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
With those comments.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Now unanimous?
No, I abstain.
Abstain?
I was not here.
Ah. Okay. 4 approved, 1 abstain. All right. June 24th. Anybody want to, any corrections need to be made there?
How does that work? Tom Callahan sat for a portion of the meeting, so that he can concur the rest of the meeting, but he can't for that piece? How does that work? These are just the minutes.
Well, no, yeah, he just recused himself for Clark.
Yeah, for Clark.
Yeah, and then, so he can vote for the whole thing.
For the.
Yeah. He just can't comment on Clark. Any changes, anybody? No? Okay, do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Move the application. Move June 24th minutes positively.
Seconded?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
I wasn't here. Do I need to abstain?
You do. All right. So we have 4 in favor. Jerry was absentee. He's abstained. All right. Okay. So before us we have a pre-application review. It's a comprehensive permit, plat R1, lot 1, 120 Knowles Way extension. Presently it is 2 commercial, it is zoned BA commercial. It is occupied by 2 commercial buildings, storefronts with multi-storefronts. The proposal is to demolish the 2 existing commercial structures, construct 4 separate multifamily structures totaling 24 units, of which 6 are designated affordable. The will have a sunk-through driveway with access from Knowles Way and a right turn only onto Judith from the driveway. 2 internal parking spaces for each unit, 12 parking spaces at the main entrance for presuming guest purposes. Okay? That's the Reader's Digest version. I give you the good stuff.
We're all set, I think.
There you go.
Sold some of our thunder. Good evening, Joelle Rocha, attorney for the applicant. As the chair stated, we're here for a pre-application, looking for some direction from this board. We've got a couple options at this site, given that there are commercial structures existing there now. One direction we could go is a straight adaptive reuse, which will likely, based on our conversations, result in rental units, apartment units at a higher density than this is proposed. When looking at what the town needs and the market, we have proposed tonight a comprehensive permit project at a lower density for sale units. Working through those details and figuring out if this is the path forward versus the adaptive reuse apartment path forward. We believe this is the path forward, but we're here tonight to work through the issues you see and flag things so we can make that determination. But we really want to hear from our engineer, so I'll turn that over to him.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just for the record, my name is Joe Casali. I'm a registered professional engineer with offices at 300 Post Road in Warwick. As Attorney Rocha said, we're here tonight to solicit your feedback for a pre-application hearing for a 24-unit residential community. And if I may, just run through the PowerPoint. There we go. So just in terms of, Mr. Chairman, where we are, Point Judith Road, the Knowles Way extension, and specifically map R1, lot 1, entirely in your limited business zone, your BA zone. Small piece, a little bit larger than an acre, about 58,000 square feet. As you're aware, there's 2 existing commercial buildings on the subject property. There's no freshwater wetlands, just based on Regis. As you all know, the subject parcel is paved corner to corner. In putting on the building envelope, the existing commercial structures, one of them, the easternmost one, is legal non-conforming in terms of its dimension. And then in terms of metrics, not much really makes sense for a lot this size. As you know, you don't allow zoning in your BA zone. And then in terms of units, you know, we would be allowed for a baseline density of 5 units per acre based on the fact that there's sewer and water, if you're servicing 25 to 50% LMI units. So in terms of metrics, 1.32 acres allows 6 units. We are proposing 24 in terms of total density. Looking at the pieces, they're interchangeable in that they're all 3-story. They can be anywhere from 1 to 3 bedrooms or a subject mix of whatever the community would like. In looking, part of the basis of the design is all of the units are going to have the garage interior facing, so that you'll have parking in both within the unit of the footprint and also within the subject area. Try to take away as much as the much as the impervious area as we can, frame it with landscaping to the maximum extent practicable. As you stated, Mr. Chairman, main driveway in and out off of Knowles Way with the signalized intersection, and then having just a right turn only to that southbound movement on Point Judith Road. That's an architectural renditioning of what you'd see from Knowles Way, that sort of front of house, and then as we stated, that's back of house inside the subject complex with the garages underneath built into the facade of the existing building. Again, we can build these out anywhere from 1-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units, or even 3-bedroom units within that same footplate. And then in terms of affordability, those would be spread out, obviously, dispersed within the subject units. And then dumpster location, parking is not an issue with the architectural choice. 2 spaces per unit requiring 48. We can easily show 60 on the subject parcel, including that auxiliary lot that you see right to the west. Utilities, very much urbanized in terms of there's sewer, there is water, there's actually multiple water lines, and there's also gas nearby. In terms of drainage, entirely impervious area, but you'll be able to reduce volume, you'll be able to clean the stormwater, you'll be able to attenuate peak rates with some type of underground injection control system or some type of subsurface UIC. You can also have bioretention areas on the outside, the perimeter, the flanks. And then in terms of permitting, as Attorney Roca said, we're here tonight as a pre-app. We would like to hear your feedback, positive and negative, so that we can understand the temperature of the community going forward. And then we have a long way to go, should we decide to continue with fire, engineering for stormwater and soil erosion, wastewater, water, and then back at preliminary before the planning board, ultimately through DEM and the state permits with PAP, and then possibly an administrative review for final plan. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, we would like to hear from you or members of the board if you care to comment on this project.
Doc?
A couple of things, and I'm sure my colleagues would bring this up too. It's commercial right now, so mixed use comes right into mind in terms of have you considered applying to the town council to maintain the character, I guess, of business as well as living space, or is that not financially viable?
No, I don't think we've considered a zone change to something that would allow the mixed use, but it's a fair comment. We realize that you don't have much, or in our pre-discussion meetings with the town, it came to our understanding about the lack of commercial that you have, especially at signalized intersections in town. So taking that out and replacing that with strictly residential could be a concern of the community.
But that's, if you go through with putting all those units in, you would eliminate the commercial.
That's right. No, and we understand that that may be a concern for the community, that we're replacing a viable commercial zone being in your BA zone and replacing that. But to answer your question directly, Doctor, no, we have not sought any zone change from the council or any type of workshop. And again, that's why we're here tonight to hear from you.
Okay, a couple other things. Water retention areas that you have.
Yes.
Is that for filtering? Does that go into the town's storm drainage system, or how does that work?
Yeah, so predominantly that will mimic, today what happens is that site, water just runs within the DOT system and in the town system unimpeded, unabated, uncleaned. What we would plan to do is route the stormwater through different appurtenances such as UICs, such as bioretention gardens, and then ultimately, yes, the overflow would continue as they go today, and those we would need requisite permits from both your town engineer and from the Department of Transportation.
The other question is an educational thing for me, with my colleagues. How can you take units that are a certain size and make them 1, 2, 3 bedrooms? That's almost magical.
Just, and there are full architecturals in your package. Just flipping through them, you just see the different layouts that you have in terms of areas that are either storage area or that they are bonus rooms, and then you're able to cut up For instance, this isn't a storage area or a bonus room that was on the ground floor plan behind the garage. We could implement a bedroom in that first floor level. There are also areas that you could have 2 bedrooms up on that 3rd floor, or you could make that a little bit larger as it's shown in this layout. So there's no magic, it's just reducing the size of the program to fit into the footplate. You'd have, in essence, the same square footage of bedroom, but in essence, you would have different size bedrooms, smaller bedrooms for privacy if you had a family. Again, it was our understanding with the pre-application meeting we had with the community that they'd like to see a mix of units and possibly 3-bedroom units. And so we look to our architect to provide a mix, but the basis of design is that you could have them with the same footplate, have different size bedrooms, if that's what the community wanted, a mix.
And you know that term bonus room, we consider it as a bedroom.
And so doesn't the DEM for
You know
terms
that. I mean, you
of
can write it-
septic.
You can put a title on it any way you want, but it's considered a bedroom. Okay.
Yeah, and you can tell us, Doc, whatever you want in terms of the number of bedrooms in that mix, and we'd be happy to implement that.
Okay.
You through that? Jerry?
Yeah, I'm assuming you're gonna have a homeowners association, these gonna be condos?
Yeah, these could be, obviously that, where the market will bear, will they become rentals initially and condos for sale at the end? I don't think that's quite figured out, but yes, this would all have to be under a homeowners association, no matter which way they're sold or rented.
So are you considering restricting rental altogether?
So I think that as proposed tonight, it's a condo project. So for sale condos, condominium association.
All right, I don't wanna speak for the board, but we kinda like 1 or 2 bedrooms, I think, right? Where somebody chime in. You just asked, so.
Thank you, and the initial concept was 1 and 2, we had modified that to include 3s for more family living, but obviously, yeah, whatever it is the community wants, you can see it's easily changeable on our end.
I didn't see an architect record on this, is there, did I miss it?
Yeah, Frank, I think it's Frank Kazarian Architects. Thank you. Couplewitz, thank you.
Just the logo.
Well, Frank is in responsible charge for, I don't know if you were provided with his floor plans and his renderings were in the package. But yes, that's who is the architect of record. Yes, his renderings, both, everything shown in the PowerPoint.
Rupert?
So I have a couple questions for staff. I guess since this is in the comp plan for commercial, do we need to change the comp plan, and do we need to do it zone commercial? Do we need to do rezoning for residential?
You can do a zone change to residential, or you, as a comprehensive permit, you can come through with a use variance.
Right.
Okay.
Which is an adjustment for purposes of the comp. Not the same standard as it is then.
And then the other question, and I think you alluded to it a little bit in the presentation, what percent of the town is zoned commercial right now?
Between 5.5 and 5.6 if you don't count galley business. So if you don't count galley as its own separate entity, it's about 5.6% of the town is commercial. That's BABB and BC.
So I guess, sort of adding to what Doc said, there's a mixed-use ordinance that's before town council. From my perspective, mixed use with commercial being retained here would be important.
There's no market appetite for small commercial at this time, which is why the property is up for sale. We have empty units, and so there just hasn't been the draw or the demand for commercial at this size
At this what?
At the size
Well,
of
they
these
don't
commercial
have to be
units.
that size though. I mean, you can make them any size that you want.
I understand, at this size of a site, there's no commercial demand for these units.
You're
Across
saying-
the street, the
Are you
state
saying
too.
site, S-I-T-E, or size, S-I-Z-E?
Both.
Oh,
In this case, both.
I'm sorry.
An acre, 1.33 acre site, I mean, and that's statewide, what's happening.
Rupert, anything else?
No, I don't think so.
No?
You started the presentation by suggesting that you also considered an adaptive reuse alternative.
Yep.
In order to know kind of what makes sense and give you feedback that makes sense from our perspective, I'd be interested to know what that looks like.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think we've mapped it out yet, so under the adaptive reuse statute, it's interesting. So you've got two options, right? You can use the existing footprints. The second option is go beyond the existing footprints at a density of however many units you can fit according to the building code. So we haven't mapped those out. They will likely, to make that work, to retrofit these structures from a code standpoint, it will be smaller units at a higher density, just by the nature of what we're working with on the site. So we don't have a number as to how many units that would be, but we know it's north of 24. We feel like the for sale units are really needed versus the apartments at a site like this.
Tom, just to let you know, an adaptive reuse is a mandatory affordable housing component.
Not in the second part, so there's, in the statute, there's two components, so there's, it's just the way it's drafted, it was supposed to be amended this year, but it was not.
Yeah, so I don't read it that way, but, you know, that's, obviously we can try to redraft it again next year. So I read it as, you have to stay within the footprint, that there's a 20% minimum affordable housing component, and, you know, so that's, you can go outside of the footprint, but with, as, you know, with safety reasons and things like that, if you read that.
And I can work offline, but there's a second section, which is also in your code now, that says for all other adaptive reuse projects, you can get as much density as you can fit under the codes.
And I heard your response on the kind of the mixed use piece, which I think would be also another option. I'd like to see some, to compare apples and oranges, I'd like to see something that kind of fleshes out a little bit too, before I could give you some advice.
And I appreciate the comments. We have a residential builder here, so you won't see a mixed use concept, but the comments are, I think, helpful to see where this goes next. At this time, we have a residential builder.
There's just unfortunately no demand.
Where do you say that?
Statewide,
Oh,
there's-
statewide, we're not in the state, we're not Bald Hill Road.
But you're constantly changing commercial units that just haven't sold or rented.
We haven't had that experience in town on Boone
This
Street.
building's
we
a
had-
classic
Let
example.
me finish. We were on Boone Street and they had great success with mixed use. And we got great tenants in there. They're very small spaces, 800, 1,000 square feet. But they certainly, and I think small businesses need it down there. The only reason why there's no tenants, one of the biggest reasons, is the condition of the property. And it's been like that for, geez, as long as I can remember.
Tom, you had the floor.
I'm good for now, thank you.
Sorry.
Staff?
Okay.
I'm going to weigh in, and then I'm going to ask the staff. One, this is a change in zoning, okay? And I think one of the concerns that we have is losing whatever commercial we can have down at that end. There isn't much. So this is a variance. I question, and I've read way too much on the new statutes and everything on the adaptive reuse. It's not abandoned, it's not fully vacant, etc. So again, that would be something we'd have to take into consideration. Density is determined by you, and you know, we expect that, but we have a staff who will determine density. I'll be honest with you, I'm not afraid of the density. I like the comments on the mixed use, but you know, we look at it that that's another profit center for the owner, but I understand the dilemma here and that it's a residential builder. I'm excited to hear that they're for sale units and not for rental. We have enough problems with this. We are desperately in need of affordable housing. Affordable with a capital A and affordable with a small a. Small a is year-round. The rate is a totally different rate than the seasonal student rate. So to see this, and I would be open to the added density. I just wish you would come in with something other than bare minimum on the affordable, because we need the affordable. And I would be open to looking at the zoning consideration on the adapted reuse densities with consideration for more affordable. 3-bedroom scares the daylights out of me. We've seen that problem. So I'm wondering, how would you agree, deed restrict those up front as part of the agreement going forward as far as 1 or 2 bedroom units? Or would you agree to just do 1 and 2 bedroom units and leave the bonus rooms out, etc.? Because this is going to be a very dense development. And again, if we can get more affordable housing, I'm willing to make a trade-off, or at least open to it. A couple of things that I think I would like to see. One, besides an increase in the number of affordable units, besides the minimum, a traffic study. And not just a traffic study to pass a traffic study in. A traffic study, I think, in this intersection, because this is an ugly intersection as is. You know, the middle of February and a Tuesday afternoon doesn't really show us the impact. The impact is going to be on a Saturday and Sunday with beach traffic and the ferry coming out, which most people don't think about. This road is already backed up, and this is going to add to it.
And I haven't looked at it, but I would assume a full traffic study is required at preliminary anyway.
Yeah, but traffic studies tend to be done.
I know what you mean.
All right, so
Message.
I haven't found a traffic study that builder didn't like, and that's fine. It's just, we live with the impacts, and I respect it, and I respect what you have to do, but to me, I think, especially if we're looking at the densities that we're looking at here, that is a critical look. You've got the ferries coming in and out on a Saturday, Sunday, Friday maybe, but Saturday, Sunday, beach traffic getting to Scarborough, getting to the ferry, etc. That's really a critical look for me. Again, I'm not opposed to the concept. I'm not even afraid of the densities. I'm disappointed in the fact that, you know, I would love to have seen, and this board is desperately looking to find ways to expand our affordable housing, and I would love to have seen more than just the minimum. It almost, you know, and I don't mean disrespect, I just mean this as editorial for all that come in, because they all come in minimum. And basically, it looks like to us, well, we're using that card to get what we want, and we'll put in the bare minimum we have to get what we want. And, you know, it doesn't help the issues. So I think there are some outstanding issues: zoning, question of adapted reuse, the actual determination of the densities, traffic study, mixed use. I understand where you're coming from. It just hurts to lose the little bit of commercial we have at that end. And again, I'm not opposed to the concept. I'm not even opposed to the densities. I just really wish it was more than just a minimum.
Staff?
Thank you. So if you read through the report, you can see that staff, in the fact sheet, we point out a few concerns, things that are unknown at this point in time. Questions about what direction the application is actually taking. Is it adaptive reuse? Is it a comprehensive permit? And you've heard tonight, they're not sure, they're looking for you for instruction on that. It may be helpful to see what the density is for an adaptive reuse, and then you might have a better idea of what you're looking at. I want to point out a couple of things. There's some pretty significant utility issues. I believe I provided the report to you. So for water, sewer, they still need to work out stormwater. The densities, you're not obligated to provide that 18 units because it is commercial. It is negotiable by you. So Mr. Brady, as far as affordable housing, it can certainly be a discussion item at your level. For the, you know, if the minimum of 25% is acceptable with that density level. So make sure I covered everything. I think I did. I think everything else is in the report. I don't think I need to reiterate it.
Redirect on to staff. Doc?
Yeah. Maybe I'm missing the fact or not, but a lot of times, as was commented, that we have these traffic studies, and I've seen a lot of traffic studies come here, right? I've never seen a bad one. Yeah, I've seen a lot of them. So the question now is, we have the authority, I think we've done it once, where we can, so to speak, hire the traffic study and hand the bill to the developer.
It is in the zoning ordinance, yeah, you
Yeah.
can do that.
I thought we could do. No, but if you don't do it as was pointed out, you know, where it's useful.
Right.
You know, on a cold winter day.
No, we
Many
appreciate
cars,
those comments too, because you know, what happens sometimes is you get a traffic study and then the board says, well, we wanna know what it's like in this time, and then you're like, oh, okay, especially since project, if it stays a comp permit, comes straight in at preliminary, so to wait 6 months to do the updated traffic counts, the comments are helpful.
Thank you.
Jerry, redirect?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Rupert, anything to add?
Just an observation, the residential apartments across the street,
Yep.
100% affordable.
You just can't, you won't get anybody but a nonprofit to be at that level of affordable. Just from a financing standpoint,
Right.
unfortunately.
Oh, yeah,
I think that's the problem we're in right now, right? Is like to
Yes.
go beyond 25% is any help or any financing out there is nonprofit financing, and hopefully that changes at some point, although we're getting less money in these next years than we had been getting, but I think that's the challenge right now, right, is how to make it feasible for this, we're being pushed in the nature of for-profit developers getting in the affordable market, but the gap exists, so I think that's just a general challenge in all these projects. So you're gonna find some happy medium where the for-profit developer actually wants to do the project. But all comments have been helpful. Appreciate your time.
Tom?
I just have a question for staff right now. Procedurally, where does this leave us? They walk out the door, have the standard for conducting
So, yeah, so
a
we got
pre-application
basically,
hearing been met?
well, there really
Could
is
they
no
come back? I
standard.
guess what I'm asking is, they come back with a plan that basically reflects this,
Correct.
without having, for example, taken a look, at least to our satisfaction, at the issue of the.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the issues, well, I won't say a problem, but under the old way we did it, there was a master plan, which then the so pre-application is just a statutory requirement. They could come here, you know, hopefully it's a dialogue back and forth, but there's no requirement that whatever happens today comes back in 6 months, a year, 2, you know, whenever it comes back to you at that point in the same format. And just because you might like something today or suggest something today, that doesn't prohibit you from not liking or liking it, you know, later on when the actual project comes. The difference now is that under the new law, everything comes in under preliminary, which means the developer has to expend a tremendous amount of money to take, what I would say, take the chance that they're going to satisfy the board as opposed to the old way where you get master plan approval and you kind of get a concept and then developer could come get financing and then come back for a preliminary plan stage. So it's a risk on the developer's side that they are going to hopefully satisfy whatever the board wants, because the law only allows a certain amount of density. The rest is density bonuses. The rest is up to the board to approve or not approve. It would be up, it would basically be at your discretion over a certain amount.
Right, so this will probably be, my last question on this, on procedurally unusual. Would it be advantageous to you to leave the preliminary hearing open if that's possible to do? And give you an opportunity to come back with an ad?
No, this is just a pre-app, so they would come at preliminary,
Yep.
they could change it.
Oh, you mean come back to you?
Come back.
So, I mean, having received all the comments, I don't think we can make that call yet. There's no vote on the pre-app, but understanding your comments, if something changes, we may be back for more comments, but I don't know that yet.
Tom, you all set?
I'm set now.
Staff, you want to add anything else?
No, I'm all set.
Okay, so again, the list I gave you was what I garnished from staff and I saw you writing, but the zoning is a variance, and whichever way you want to look at it. Adaptive reuse, comp plan, I mean, the determination of the density is really got to come from our staff and stuff. Traffic study, we've talked about use. Mixed use, we've talked about it. And again, we're looking at very large density bonuses, and the thing that we have been fighting for and desperately want is affordable. And the thing that I'm echoing back at you is we understand that you got to make money, but these are nice densities, and we could use a little bit more affordable. We'd like to keep it 1 or 2 bedrooms, and bonus rooms become bedrooms. It's not your fault, not the builder's fault, it's just they become bedrooms, so please think of that in your design. I did have one personal question on the collection of runoff. So site runoff, does that include roof runoff also?
Yeah, that's the cleanest runoff, we'll capture that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then property runoff. Great. Okay. All right.
Thank you, that was very helpful.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Okay. All right. Site review. This is a continuation of Rome Tax Assessors Plat, NS, lot 294. The applicant is existing conditions is a 32 by 24 two-story dwelling with 32 by 12 irregular shaped rear deck and an 8 by 6 covered front entry porch. Existing building lot coverage is approximately 1,204 square feet or 17.2%. Proposal is to demolish the existing rear deck and front entry, construct a 44 by 33 two-story L-shaped addition with a 33 by 8 two-story double-decker rear deck with stairs and a 13 by 6 expansion of the covered front entry porch with stairs. Proposed building lot coverage will be approximately 1,891 or 26%. This is coming back to us because there was a question of numbers and as to what regs are going to be submitted. It is now being presented to us under the new 2024 zoning regulations, and everything in your packet was updated. Counselor, did you do justice there?
Yes, very much.
All right,
Thank
I
you.
turn the floor over to you. More than capable again.
Thank you. Chair Brady, members of the board, we see you tonight, James Callahan of Callahan, 3 Brown Street. Here tonight on behalf of Leslie and Robert Barone, who are here. With us is Amy Sonder of Easterbrook Associates, and Gail Hollick of Gail Hollick Architects could not be here tonight due to a death in the family, so we apologize, but we will move forward. So I want to congratulate Jill. That's very impressive.
Thank you, Jill.
well-deserved and big shoes to fill, so good luck.
You did have big feet.
We're here tonight on a recommendation for 105 Camden Road, it's on your screen. The street runs parallel to West Quake Pond. For background, Robert is a dentist with offices in work. He's been practicing since 1984, and Leslie is a real estate professional in East Greenwich. They've owned the property at Camden since 1995. Notably, the lot is undersized and irregularly shaped. It measures only 7,005 square feet of net area, I believe. As you probably recall, and Chair Brady mentioned, we were here before you in June. After some consideration, we asked this project be reviewed under the new zoning laws as of January 1st, 2024, and we understand that's a double-edged sword in some respects, based on the town ordinances and other aspects. The existing residence is relatively small. It's 1,204 square feet. Proposed residence would be 1,891 square feet. The principal reason here is for the addition of some living space and some storage for the Barones. As noted in our application, the interior living space where they actually spend their time measures only about 912 square feet. It's just not enough room for Bob, Leslie, and their 2 college-age sons who go to Uri and Xavier, any friends they might have over, visiting girlfriends, whatever they might have. The proposal includes 687 square feet of additional space, and this limited space will actually allow them to move here full-time and spend all their time here in Narragansett, which is what they prefer to do. They love this spot, they love the area, and they want to spend their future. So we're asking for a series of variances, and notably, most of the variances, not all, but most, fall within the 15% modification allowed by law. So I know we're not under that because we have others that aren't, so I just use that for reference. We're asking for a front yard setback variance, a right yard setback variance, lot coverage variance, and a building height variance. Those 3 of those 4 fall under the 50% modification, or would, and also a FAR variance to allow limited space, again, for their living space. Notably, and this doesn't decide the situation, but to the north of the property is a paper street, which is Greenwich Road. The Verones looked into purchasing that from the fire district or abandonment by the town, but it just didn't work out. So we did explore that option, would have given them more space, and it does provide a buffer of some sorts between them and the existing dwelling to the north. Overall, we're trying to emphasize this is for the Barones alone, not for renters, not for any college students. We think that this change would have a negligible effect on the neighborhood, and once complete, the house will almost look unchanged from the street. So we're asking for a positive recommendation, and with that, I'd like to turn it over to Amy Sun. Thank you.
Hi. So, I was here last month talking about the project, and a couple of things that I'd like to note. This parcel did have a buffer management plan approved in 2005, and I think you have a copy of that in your packet. And we did go through coastal, do you have the blank one by any chance?
I don't think I do.
I'm going to just hand out a copy of that just so you have it. Actually, I have 2 of them. So, with this application, there would be no change to the buffer management plan. They would be maintaining their 25-foot buffer area, which was planted, and it's still planted today. Currently, they have not utilized the footpath. They may be implementing that back in a later date, and they do have permission to do that. And they are actually, as you can see by the shaded green area, buffering more than they're required to. They were allowed to have that 25-foot setback area as lawn area, and the vegetation has come in. We will have to go back to Coastal Resources with a final assent once we design or get approval from the town. We did get a preliminary determination, do they have that in their package?
They should,
From Coastal Resource, and they felt that all these modifications could be handled by staff and would be, they looked upon it favorably. We may not have to put in the rain garden due to the square footage of the footprint they're proposing, and generally with the town, if the water is shedding to a natural wetland already, and there's a substantial amount of area and it's not going to affect any abutting properties or roads, the town doesn't require it either, but we are showing the rain garden until that is decided upon. We are maintaining, as said in the staff report, 59.4 feet to the structure. We are increasing that current setback slightly by that cantilever and approximately a foot at the base of that deck area. But the portion that cantilevers over the previously approved structural area is just 2.65 feet. Thank you. As you can see on that side area, we're asking for side setback relief in the architecturals. That is for egress in and out of the structure from the inside of the garage, and they're proposing stairs and an elevator in that area there. I will speak a little bit to Gail Halleck's plans because she couldn't be here tonight. This house is basically, the main living space is the second floor of the home. So they are going to be taking a 3-bedroom home and maintaining it as a 3-bedroom home, but taking one of the bedrooms and putting it on the main floor so that they can age in place on that one main floor. And they will have access via stairs and an elevator on that portion of the floor. And this is the main living area, and that's why adding the bedroom upstairs, the need to expand the living space, as you can see in the red shaded area. This is actually the lower level, which will be converted or modified to be 2 bedrooms with bathrooms. Obviously, you can see the elevator there and access. And because we're expanding the second story for the main living area, that bedroom area would, you can go back to that other one, sorry about that, Ryan. We'll have that shaded area also where they're calling it the family room. So they may be able to look at that for modification of the FAR, but in the end, it's the main proposal is to have that main living space on the first floor and then have this family room for everybody on that bedroom floor, the lower level, which is not the primary use area. And then the deck now, which projects 12 feet off the rear of the building, which is just maintaining, you know, a deck that they had had there previously. Actually, yeah, 12.5-foot deck. So I think, to add to the setbacks, the front setback actually is becoming more conforming. The front setback now is 26.5, and we will be increasing that setback to the existing setback is 25.6, excuse me, and we're going to increase that to 26.5. So we'll be setting that back 1 foot. So the front setback should not be, I don't think, require any relief because it's grandfathered there. I do have we have the 5.7-foot side setback as shown on the right side, and then the height, as James said, would be allowed per a modification permit. So it's only going to 34.6 feet, which is under the previously acceptable height of 35 feet. I think that's my 10 minutes.
Doc?
Yeah, you know, the side areas there in terms of access on both sides of the building is very narrow, and I think looking at the pictures here, you're up three stories down. So from a standpoint of, again, the fire people getting by with ladders, et cetera, you're under their recommendations. The other thing is, we don't have an absolute number, but we're still asking for, I think, at least the FAR plus 4 variances?
Yeah, the FAR, it would be a request of approximately 500 square feet. And
Plus 4 variances. I mean, it's a small piece in terms of the property that we're talking about here. These folks own a small piece of property and are trying to put a large structure on it. I understand why they want to do it, but the problem is, you've heard me say this, everybody's heard me say this again, where do you draw a line? 1 foot, 2 foot, 10 feet. So, there's no handicap ramp that has to go in here or something. I just can't support that on the show. That many variances, et cetera, in order to gain what the applicant is trying to get. That's me.
Is it? Yep. Jerry?
I'm a little confused on the 15% bonus. So, do these conform? Which ones do you say conform, which do not?
excuse me, the first part of your question?
I'm confused on that you mentioned a 15% bonus.
The 15, the modification permit, if we were just going for this structure and it only needed that height relief, or we didn't require any zoning, we could apply for the 15% modification permit, and it would be allowed generally going through the process because it's under the 15%. You have the 5 and the 15% modification permits. So this house, and I don't know exactly how much higher it's going, it looks to be approximately maybe a foot or 2. I think it's already probably over the 30-foot height restriction. So if we were just applying for that, we could do it through a modification without coming before the board, but it requires other variances, so you can't do both.
Right.
Correct? Yeah.
That's all I got.
Yeah, I guess my concern is the amount of FAR, which is more than the 15%.
Right.
So I'd like to see it reduced to make that
Yeah.
the FAR work within.
I can't get, yeah, as I said, that main floor, putting the master suite up, the bedroom up above, if you could go to that architectural level, Ryan, right there, so, yep. Pulling that bedroom up and making a master suite, that's where we come into having, to expand that living area, which is approximately 540-something square feet. And then, because that's the main floor, which is the second floor of the structure, it's full, it would be a gaping, hole underneath to reduce that FAR there. But they'd like to maintain that, as they mentioned, for their family, to have a family room and have a separate space for their close to adult children.
I guess, because you already, the whole first level isn't counted in the FAR already, so.
Well, the basement, it's in the flood zone,
Right.
so.
I understand.
Yeah,
but
there's
my
no
point-
storage there. I mean, they're trying to put in storage and access, and it does become quite a problem-solving situation. I know Gail has worked a long time on these plans, trying to make it all as tight as possible and to obtain the goals of the homeowners. But yes, we are aware of that.
Is that it? Tom?
It is a request for a lot of relief. Could you tell me again, I read the CRMC's report, and for an expansion that's less than 600 feet, they're not requiring any additional stormwater management, is that correct?
Correct.
And the town doesn't require any additional stormwater management?
That's an unknown. Sometimes it depends on the coastal feature. I don't know what
This actually went through engineering already.
and I don't think he required it initially, but I knew coastal would generally require it, so I'm putting it in there because, and it's not a bad thing. I think we have the ability, you know, we would have no problem maintaining our rain garden anyway. But that will be a coastal stipulation when we go back for the ascent.
So coastal is in their paragraph 4, says the rain garden should be reconfigured to remain as far inland as possible in order to maintain the CRMC's 50-foot construction setback. Are you planning to do that?
We are maintaining that, yes.
You're going to reconstruct the rain garden in order to do that?
Yes.
That's what this is
Oh, on
saying.
the rain garden, oh, I'm sorry, yeah. We can accommodate that, and there is a relief on that if it has to go in that area, but at this point, they likely won't require it, because we're under the 600 square feet of increased roof area.
Well, the sentence says two things. It says it's
Yeah.
under 600 feet, no stormwater management is required. However, the proposed rain garden is beneficial to the neighborhood in handling stormwater flooding.
Correct.
The rain garden should be reconfigured, so I'm asking you, do you plan to reconfigure the rain garden?
At a recommendation of coastal, we could alter the location of the rain garden, yes. Closer to the dwelling structure or to the east, getting it further away from the coastal feature.
So your answer is if coastal requires it, we'll do it.
Well, most likely, yes, I'm gonna try to modify to whatever the PD requirements are to make accommodate their wishes as
PD is what?
sorry, preliminary determination from coastal resources. As you can see, if I take that and I can push that closer to the southeast and get it closer to the structure and make it a little more irregular shaped or divide it into two pieces. But yes, I will make it
I don't want to get into the
landward.
details of the design, it seems to me it's a pretty straightforward.
outside the
recommendation.
50-foot setback. Yeah,
The language, let me just make my point. The language is pretty straightforward in terms of its recommendation. And I'm simply trying to figure out whether or not that's something you're prepared to do.
yes.
Thank you.
Seth?
I have nothing else, although I did just notice in the floor plans for the first floor, in my conditions, I do note that no door jams or pocket doors would be allowed in the
Correct.
office. You may also want to add the family room as well. I did not pick up that in my initial review. Other than that, I-
That pocket door,
Mhm.
yeah, okay. Yep, we can make note of that.
We're gonna go to butters. Do you have any butters that wanna talk? No? Okay.
Well, yeah, another comment, but also on the doors. I thought these areas that we question whether they may or may not be used as a bedroom or an office. I thought there was a width
Yeah, 48
comment
inches.
too, the an open space and a wider one. Is that all in the, can you point the office out, please?
The office is right here on the
There
right.
it is. There it is, yeah. So this,
And this door is proposed that it looks like 3.5 inches. If it was 48 inches or greater,
Right.
it wouldn't be considered a bedroom.
so you,
We're fine with
You agree to that?
modifying that to make it not qualify as a bedroom.
okay.
And the son of the family room as well? Where you're showing
Correct,
pocket
that
door?
pocket door, yeah, we would do something there as well. That would probably be a 48-inch opening or something to accommodate. There goes that second sink.
Two in one. Doc, any other questions?
Yeah, catch staff's ear here, they're writing something.
I
At
do
what
have
point,
Oops, sorry.
pardon?
I was gonna have a question on that. If there's no door jamb, for example, where the pocket door is, would it still have to be 48 inches, because it's a
Yeah,
hallway?
it's in the definition.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's strange, because it is a hallway, right? So,
I think the idea for that is to not come in after the fact and put
right,
the casing in.
right.
At
Okay,
48 inches, it becomes more
yeah,
cumbersome.
okay.
And the question is, at what point does a proposal, whatever the proposal, because I can't recall, pass through all the different departments? Where I'm going is with the fire marshal, but when does it get to the fire marshal?
I believe that's after zoning. After zoning approval.
Yeah, building permits.
After zone?
Yep, it goes to you guys and then zoning, and then it will go back to building, and then it will go to fire.
We've already built it. Jesus. No, I'm just being sarcastic, okay.
Anything else you would like to add? Any questions? No? Okay. Jerry?
Good.
Tom?
Nothing further.
Okay. Just add my 2 cents to it. So if we go down to the variances and the numerous, and the unfortunate part is with a small property it is. FAR is at 22%,
Yes.
you know. And we've always been pretty stringent on FAR for obvious reasons. Height, building height, 15.4%. We've always been pretty solid on that, trying to protect skyline, people's views, etc., and just the consistency within buildings. Lot coverage is 4%, and the setback is 54.92%. So,
Which setback is that, 50?
that's your side setback, right
Oh, for
side
the
setback.
5.7?
Yep. So, permitted 11.98, proposed 5.4, it's 54.92%. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, the only thing on that side setback, the larger percentage is that the lot is only 50 feet wide. It's a substandard lot of record. And as James pointed out earlier, it is Branch Road. It is an open area. The likelihood of anything built in, I think their intent is to keep that for conservation area and access, is why they would not be allowed to, we tried to abandon that to gain property. So I wouldn't see any structures or any implementation on that Branch Road area, so it would be fully accessible from that side.
As long as they don't put a chain link fence up, if they want to put it right away down to the water.
That's the next step, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and, you know, the chainsaws of the fire people don't work on chain link fences.
Okay. Do we have a motion on this?
Yeah. Move the application before us, for own tax assessor plat NS lot 294 is complete. How about the, compatible with the comprehensive plan? Do we leave that clause out, or is it compatible with?
You can limit it if you have an issue, single family, well, single family residential use is compatible with.
With the plan?
Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So that's unanimous. Do I have a motion on the request?
Yeah, I'll move the application before us for own tax assessor plat NS lot 294 negatively, with the staff's comments, recommendations, etc., dated July 11, 2024, emphasizing the relief requested on the variances, side, front, lot coverage, building height, FAR variance. I would really underscore that one. And I think that covers, unless somebody wants to add to my motion.
gonna have to answer hardship.
Oh, yeah, very good, yeah. Pointing out that the hardship is placed on the owner for requesting this, and also the, one of my favorite review columns here, compliance with applicable development, performance standards, compatibility, suitability. But the last one, 16, availability of alternatives to the proposed project.
I'll second that.
Did you,
Sorry.
did you get all of that as he was going on? Okay. Yes,
Yes, I did.
hold on.
And did you want to amend condition number 2 to also include the family room?
Yes, I was gonna add that. So, condition number 2, to include the family room, as well as the office as far as the 48-inch opening.
48-inch open.
That would
No, no, so, Mr. Brady,
Sorry.
you're making a motion to recommend denial.
Right.
So none of the
So none of
conditions
it
apply.
matters, yeah, all right, that's true. Didn't think of that, thank you.
Okay.
Do I have a second on the motion?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Negative.
It's unanimous. You get to go to zoning now, good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. My pages are all sticking together with this humidity.
It's just not hot enough.
You can take your jacket off, sir.
How are you feeling in that jacket?
Can the gentleman remove his jacket?
Yeah.
Out at the dunes.
It's 117 at the Dunes Club, that's what the jacket is.
Allow me there.
Why is this not coming up? D2.
I'm missing it. This particular proposal.
D2.
So it's the third one, right?
Yeah, it's kind of mixed bag.
Is this the best for last, Jack, or what are we doing? Just
No,
saving the
hold on a
best for last?
second.
It's a 2.5 hour presentation.
That's why we turned the air conditioner on.
Is D2 not in our books?
It's D3.
No.
No, D2 got taken out.
All right, so D2 has been taken out. So we're going to D3.
That's for
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
next one.
So we're going to Chapman and Fairborn. Okay, so they've been moved ahead of the pack. Okay, existing conditions. 33 by 33 two-story dwelling with a 24-inch roof overhang and 12 by 30 side yard deck with stairs. Existing 10 by 15 rear yard shed. Existing 35 by 23 impervious driveway. Existing building lot coverage is approximately 1,689 square feet, or 16%. Existing coverage is approximately 2442 square feet, or 24%. Proposed, demolish the existing 12 by 30 side yard deck with stairs and the 35 by 23 impervious driveway and walkway. Construct an 11 by 25 irregularly shaped second story addition with a 15 by 6 second story covered deck and a 30 by 37 irregular shaped third story addition with an 11 by 25 irregular shaped third story covered deck. Construction of a 907 square foot pervious driveway and walkway. Proposed building lot coverage will be approximately 1795, or about 18%. Proposed site coverage will total about 1805, about 18%. So required release is dimensional release, front yard setback variance, and building height. Do justice to that, sir.
What about the floor area ratio variance?
You also had a floor area ratio.
Oh, and the floor area ratio, I'm sorry.
It's
My
that.
glasses are fogged up.
It
Should've
is
said.
to get hot.
Trying to say. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jack McGreen for the applicant.
The applicants are Henry Chapman and Louisa Fairborn. Like you said, the property is located at 44 Willow Avenue, Plat N Lot 315. It's located in an R10 zone and it has 10,000.8 square feet. They're looking to remove an existing side yard deck and an impervious driveway. They're going to construct a second-story addition with a covered deck. Also going to construct a third-story addition with a covered deck and replace the existing impervious driveway and walkway with pervious material. The project meets the side yard, rear yard, lot coverage, and soft and hardscape requirements. The floor area ratio relief does fall within the 15% allowable variance by the building inspector. The FAR we're looking for is 2980, and the 15% would permit the 3,105. The height of the building is 34.9 feet, and again, 15% modification would permit the height to go up to 34.5 feet. So we're 4 inches short on that. But the existing house already has a front yard setback of 3.2 feet, and the application is seeking an additional 4.9 feet for a total of 8.1 feet in order to construct a roof entry for the protection from the weather and for some aesthetic value. Maybe you could bring up the front of the house. I think I took a couple of pictures of that.
I don't have pictures that you submitted.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, that's good enough. So this really is, but for the this request right here, we could have done all of this via the 15%. But we wanted to push this out. The house is already within the front yard setback, so we were looking for another, I think, 4.9 feet.
I'm sorry, Jack, but for what you pointed to, is it?
Oh, yeah, so it's this, I believe this is the kick out. The existing structure, let me just confirm that with the client, is the existing footprint right here against this wall?
No, the existing footprint is where the front door is right now.
The front door is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the existing footprint. So this pushes us into the front yard setback, an additional 4.9 feet. So that is why we're here, for that. But for that, we would have reduced the height by 4 inches in order to go via 15%. And that is the long and the short of it.
Don?
Yeah, I think you answered part of it. So you said you could, drop the height. I mean, you people set through laws. I mean, variances are, you gotta have a hardship, you gotta have some reason that, again, I always use the, handicap ramp or whatever as an example, because that's a hardship. But the idea that, for whatever reason, these folks would like this house in this dimension is it's a request, I understand that, but there's got to be a reason, a hardship reason, because all the rules and regulations will go out the window.
Well, you wouldn't need to show a hardship, quite frankly, if you were under the 15%.
But you're not.
No, we are on everything but that front. So in theory, we could say, well, forget it, we're not gonna put that little bump out there, and we'll just go with the 15%. Won't go before zoning, won't come back before planning, and just do it that way.
But under calculations, your roof is still 4 inches out, right?
Right, and the reason why it's actually that way is because at the time I believe these plans were designed, it was prior to the change of that zoning ordinance to react to the state house's reduction, giving the building inspector 15%. So what the town did was they reduced their setbacks, their FAR, their side yard variances, all by 15%, so that when the building inspector gave that relief, he would just get right back up to the 35 feet. But when the town did the math, when they reduced it by 50%, you only get back to 34.9, I think, just because I believe the math wasn't done correctly. But if we were just going for that, we certainly could reduce the height of the house by 4 inches, 3 or 4 inches. That's not the reason we're here today.
Can I continue?
Yep.
The other thing is, you have a second kitchen and a second living room in the structure.
They do. There's an existing kitchen. They plan on living on the 3rd floor. You'll notice that there's an elevator there, so as they age in place, as they say,
That's a two-family home in my book.
well, it's not, I mean, there's open space, there's
Oh, I know what
actually,
you're
there's no,
saying.
we're not closing
I
down
know
the
what
house.
you're saying, but, yeah, we've been sitting up here a long time.
Right.
And as soon as you put another kitchen and a living room there, that's, to me, that's two-family home. In any case, my colleagues can talk further about that, but right away, fingers get burned once, get burned again.
Well, I think there's a notation on the plan, on the 2nd page, depending on, I think if you remove a stove, that might make it not a kitchen. I saw there was a notation on the plan there, if the building inspector requested that the stove would be removed, but it's not their intention to have this property be used as a two-family.
Well, it's not, yeah, it's never this couple, right, these people. They tell us straight, it's the next owner. We
Doctor,
see that.
as you know, that's an enforcement issue. I mean, people are gonna do what they're gonna do. You wanna put a kitchen in your
We
basement?
don't have a policeman who goes around and taps on windows and looks in.
I
So the
understand that.
problem is when you plumb it and put the areas aside for this purpose, if I'm gonna buy it and I want that advantage for whatever reason, I'm not gonna tell these folks. I'm gonna buy it and misuse it. And there's no flag outside or, I mean, in any case, right, you can see where I'm coming from.
I understand.
You set? Sure.
I think Doc said it well. I concur. That's all I have.
Anything else? Rupert?
Yeah, I don't really have anything else either, I think.
Tom?
You go, the dimensional relief, that feature on the front of the building,
Right.
what exactly functionally is that? Is it any function or is it simply aesthetic?
I think it's aesthetic and would it protect you with the weather on the front door? Is that solid? That's solid, right?
Yeah, the floor is solid and there'll be an overhang there.
Right.
But, I'm sorry, the area,
Yeah, this right here, they put, so I think they're counting this, right? They would count this as well, correct?
No, we wouldn't
You
count the
don't count this, so
platform.
it's just
No, the
this.
building official would just count out to the edge of the pergola.
Okay,
So
so it's just the edge of the pergola.
so is that, I'm sorry, is that pergola?
Is that solid?
Is that
I think
solid
that's
all
the
the way
question.
down?
I think it's solid underneath it. Isn't that a solid, it's a solid roof.
Oh.
It's not, it doesn't go through, is that solid?
The
Not have
the
windows.
intent is for that to be solid
Solid.
and protect from
Yeah,
whether if you wanted to sit out there and watch the children run up and down the
Right.
street on their bicycles and all.
so that, the rain doesn't go through those slats there. I think on the underside, it's a solid surface, so. And like I said, while we're asking for a lot of relief, we're really not, because we are within the 15%. And the whole reason that the town amended that ordinance was to prevent somebody from going and asking for a 39-foot house, We're at the relief within the zoning ordinance completely. So it's not an excessive ask. We're really coming here because of that front overhang.
Tom, anything else?
No, I was just, but for the kind of the solid area underneath it, I was thinking about how we handled something similarly a couple months ago over here, in terms of having something that aesthetically was
Rose
Right.
Court. That was
rose court,
Rose
aesthetically that made the building, the facade of the building look quite a bit more attractive, but for that flat solid period, part of the wall. Okay.
Staff?
I have nothing else to add.
And the applicants are, if you had any
Yeah,
questions with
I'm-
them, maybe further flush out that issue of the kitchen and how they intend to use the property.
Yeah, that's what that was my stickler, because based on what I can see, that aesthetically that looks like an open beam, but there's a cover underneath it. So you've got functionality and aesthetics, and I get that. My question is this a two-family home? Is it an in-law? Why two kitchens?
So, yeah, sure. Okay, so this is the rendition of what's there now.
Okay.
Great. So the house as it is right now has a kitchen. This is what we live in currently. The intent was never to make this two-family, but more to, in one way, not make the cost extraordinary by dismantling all of that. Our intent, I mean, we started this project about 2 years ago to kind of align with my retirement. I'm retiring in August.
Congratulations, the best job you're ever gonna have in your life, guaranteed.
That's the intent. And actually, by now, we were expecting at this point to be almost done with the project, if not for some construction scheduling issues. We would have been past this point long before. But the intent is for us to be in this house forever, and that's the reason why we put this elevator here. There's only one way into the house, and that's this door here. You can come in through the back door here, and into the space. That's a sliding door, 6-foot sliding door that now leads to this little pad here. So you can come in that way, but there's no blocked off areas anywhere. This is free open space to the elevator. There's free open space here. Here's a stairway to the second floor. There's no door here. I think there's a door. There should not be any door there. This is all free. What's that to the third floor?
Oh, that's the first floor. This is the first floor.
Yeah, I think the question is, you have a quick kitchen on this floor and,
Yep.
and a second kitchen.
Right, well, yeah, so the way we live now is we need a kitchen, right? So we have a kitchen.
Right.
The intent of this design was to be able to live almost all exclusively on the third floor. And that's why we put a kitchen on the third floor. So
It's a living space.
that is the living space.
You have a view up there, is that?
And, yeah, that also affords us a view of the ocean from there. So all the bedrooms are on the second floor. Yes, this is the second floor. So the elevator here, there's a laundry room, bathroom, bedroom, 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 and bedroom. So those are the bedrooms in the house. On the third floor, there's a dining room. This is a dining room here. The kitchen area here, the kind of lounging area here, and then the outdoor living space that you saw in the plan. So, I mean, that's really the reason for the two kitchens. We didn't design it to have two kitchens. We didn't say we wanted two kitchens.
Would you be grossly adverse to pulling out the old kitchen if you have the new kitchen? You're hearing what our concern is, and our concern is based on, not you folks. We've been burnt so many times. And, you know, I can't speak for my colleagues, but I have no problem with the front entrance. I do have a problem with two kitchens. And I understand it's an added cost to rip it out and stuff like that, but I'd be much more comfortable with this if there was one kitchen. And I'm not trying to cost you extra money, but that's just, you know, history, unfortunately, in our experience.
So to minimize cost, what constitutes for you a kitchen? You know, if you take the stove out, the what is it, the sink? I mean.
Yeah, that's a determination from the building official. But
yeah, I can't get into that.
Normally, it is the stove, It's definitely the stove,
Okay,
and it could be the sink, but it's never the refrigerator. You keep the refrigerator
right,
there.
because you could.
Right.
Yeah, 'cause you can put a refrigerator in there.
Yeah, right,
But it's definitely the stove, and you'd have to ask the building official on the sink.
Right.
okay,
So that's just
We
where
would, we would be more than willing to remove the stove.
yeah.
If you ask me about an undue hardship in redoing the entire first floor, I would.
No, we're not looking for that at all. I just, you know, you have a beautiful design here, and I'm just sitting there looking at this, and so.
Yeah.
Redirect, you want to add anything? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
Okay. Doc?
No, I think I agree with you in terms of the front of the home and the overhang. That doesn't bother me. It adds to the home and to its usefulness and to its safety in terms of weather and getting in. The business of the variances, I keep hearing from council that this is, these variances are not variances because they're within the 15% number.
Yeah, so
Can you address this?
you want to go, Jill, or?
No?
I'll address it one way.
No,
I'm asking him.
They pay me, so I should probably do it. So, obviously, the state law said that you have a certain dimensional requirement. And under the state law that passed 2 years ago, if you went over that dimensional requirement by less than either up to 5% or 5 to 15%, the building official would be able to grant that dimensional relief, and it is dimensional relief, either automatically if it's less than 5%, or they have to send notification to the radius people if it's 6 to 15.
It's just
and if they-
immediate butters, not the radius.
which is a radius,
No, but it's not, it's just the. immediate-
Gentlemen,
which
we'll
is
play this someplace
which
else.
is a radius. Your
Okay.
immediate butters are a radius.
Okay,
Steve, fire away.
go
All right,
ahead.
thanks. So, and if there was no objection, the building official, as long as there was no health and safety concern on the building official, they could grant that dimensional relief automatically, without, administratively.
Yeah, administrative.
And if it goes above that number, then they would have to go to the zoning board to get, again, additional relief. What Mr. McGreen is saying is that the issue is once one of those gets above the 15%, you're not allowed to get 4 of them by the building official and 1 of them by the board. Once it jumps over, once one of the requests jumps over the 15%, they have to come before the board anyway. I mean, they can come before the board at any time they want to. It's obviously easier to do it administratively. So that's the reason. What he's saying is that the majority of the dimensional requests would have been done administratively, assuming that there was no objectors in the abutting properties.
So,
Let's clear as mud.
yeah, so the question is, the abutters don't even know they're here because we don't.
Well, they will. It's
For the
on
zoning.
Yeah, they will at zoning.
But we
which
have
is-
to make a decision.
You are making a
Before we-
recommendation.
so
You're
I
making
can
a
do it
rec-
tonight.
No, you're recommending.
So we don't have the abutters here to add that
Correct.
part of the conversation.
But you are making a recommendation, not a decision, which is different.
Right. But before us is the fact, which I think I hear is disputed, is that we have 3 variances being asked for. As I mentioned, the front yard, I can accept that, but we have 2 others. The floor area ratio variance and the building height variance. So those, we have to make a recommendation
On everything,
to
to the zoning board.
zoning.
On everything. Once they made the I call it a business decision, once they made the business decision to necessitate a variance greater than the 15%, then you subject your application to the zoning board's, the criteria of the zoning board.
But you could, in your recommendation, differentiate if you wanted to. in terms of what the board's position is on each of the.
Yeah, you can make a
requested
motion to, you recommend approval on, height,
Right.
side yard setback, and you recommend denial on whatever.
Right.
You can certainly do that in your recommendation, because the zoning board can, at any time, they could grant 3 of the 4, or 4 of the 5, or, one of, whatever they wanted to.
Doctor, may I suggest, on the previous application, you were saying, well, where do we draw the line?
Yeah.
I know the previous application, they were looking for 510 square feet of FAR relief. That was outside the 15%. I think the line that you should consider is, if they're within the 15%, they would have got it anyway under the old ordinance. The only reason why we adopted that new ordinance is so that the building inspector couldn't go above and beyond the 35 feet, or he couldn't go above and beyond the 15-foot setback relief. That was the whole purpose of that ordinance. So I think the line should be, for you, in my opinion, if they're within the 15 feet, we don't really have a problem with that. It's when we're going beyond that 15% that we really need to consider it.
Sorry?
No comment? Good.
Rupert?
Something I hadn't commented on in the design, I thought the removal of the impervious surface in the design of the driveway was excellent. Super, when I was looking at Brian's numbers originally, I'm like, wait a minute, you're adding space, but you're removing space, and it's like, really.
Anything else?
No, I
Okay.
concur with council's last point, actually.
Tom?
I would just simply say it's important what Steve said. This is basically, what constitutes the kitchen is the building official's decision. It may be not only removing the stove, it may be removing the service for the stove. It might be taking the sink out. So just to be clear, so no one feels like they haven't had the opportunity to understand exactly what it's going to be, his call.
So, Mr. Reed, can I just ask
I
a
was
question
coming
of
to
the
you.
board? Is it the board's concern that this property will be used as a two-family?
Yes.
Okay, condition number 2 in your report should button that up, where it says that, well, there's actually 2 parts to this. The egress of the upper levels remain open and unobstructed. The lower level shall not be used as an additional living unit, and the unit shall remain a single-family use. So if you're satisfied with that condition, then that might solve your concern about this being a two-family.
We'd like to add a little bit more strength to that.
I thought we had discussed that with the applicant.
Having the zoning officer look at, I'm sorry, the building official look at
Yeah.
Take the
what it
stove-
would take to make this not qualify as a second kitchen?
Minimum requires to make it a non-second kitchen. That sounds to me what the board is saying.
And the applicants agree. So,
Right,
yeah,
back,
we can move, we're ready to go.
anybody have any other additional questions, concerns? Staff?
Nothing else.
Council?
That'll do it.
Okay.
This requires engineering, but the first part is easy, right? All right. Fair, application before us, Chapman Fairborn, tax assessor, plat in, lot 315, is complete and in conformance with town comprehensive plan.
I'll second that.
On the second, all those in favor?
All right.
All those opposed? Ayes have it, unanimous.
And I'll take a shot at this if you want.
Sure.
So, I move the project before us, tax assessor's plat N, lot 315, 44 Willow Lane, affirmatively, with the staff's documentation and recommendations, striking recommendation number 1, because of the 15% that we discussed, and adding to recommendation 2 that the building, working with the building official to ensure that there's not a second dwelling unit.
Yeah, if I might,
Sure.
I'd like to word that, you know, what minimal relief that can be done to make it not a second kitchen. These folks aren't looking
I
at the
can,
entire,
I concur,
okay?
yeah.
Thank you. Do I have a second on this?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Recommendation goes to zoning as a positive recommendation unanimously.
Good for you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
And again, you're gonna enjoy retirement.
But I'm looking forward to it.
Have you thought about volunteering for a board in the town?
But I've observed my retirement came with a honey-do list, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yours is no exception.
And by the way, when you retire, it just automatically adds on. It shouldn't have to do it, doesn't even have to be in the same time
So
zone.
I'm gonna be busier in retirement than I am now. Thank you.
Enjoy, folks.
Thanks for your time.
Okay. All right. So, we are now going to recommendations to the town council. First, zoning ordinance text amendment, amending definition of a bed and breakfast guest house.
So Champion's not being heard.
That is Champlin. Vitgalino was not heard.
It is.
Sandpiper Road.
Right?
All right?
So nobody's here for Champion.
No.
No, those should have been taken out of your packets.
Yeah. So,
You should be going right
For
to
Champion,
yeah,
tab E.
the Tigliano is not, it
It's
should
not
be taken
there.
out.
Yeah,
Should have been taken
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, we just did Chapman and Fairborn.
We're not talking Chapman, I'm talking about Champion.
that's on next month's agenda, that should have been removed. from
That should have been
the-
removed also.
They just put that in there to confuse you.
I just want to hear about the legislation.
Ah.
Good.
All right. So what else? That's next, that's a preview. That's
Whatever
coming
we write,
attraction.
we didn't mean.
That's
We're gonna tell you.
That's like a teaser. All right, so,
Okay.
so we're going to recommendations to town council. Zoning ordinance text amendment. Definition, amending definition of a bed and breakfast, guest house, and adding the definition of a boarding house. I'll turn this over to staff immediately.
This is what I might need your help. Okay, so the town council sent this recommendation down to you. There is a change. What they're proposing to do is change the licensing requirement for, in the municipal code, and they realized that things did not match. For instance, we have a definition of bed and breakfast, but it didn't include owner occupied. The owner occupied provision was actually in the commentary of the table of use regulations. And at the time that staff looked at it, we also realized that we didn't, while we had a use for a boarding home, we didn't actually have a corresponding definition. So the definition you see up here for boarding home is the same definition that's in the licensing requirement in the municipal code. And this definition of bed and breakfast will also match what's in the licensing requirement of the municipal code. So this is sort of a cleanup and cross-reference between licensing, the clerk's office, and the zoning ordinance. What was not a part of this recommendation that came down from the town council, and I'm thinking that you may want to consider this, is the actual change to the table of use. Because right now, if you were to be recommending approval, for instance, of the changes to bed and breakfast to include owner occupied, there's a redundancy in the table of use regulations because it already says owner must reside on premises. So I'm suggesting that you recommend to the town council that they amend that by striking that, and in lieu, add that language that says license required, which will dovetail with the licensing requirement, and the clerk's office, and is very similar to, I think it's the use code above or below it for boarding home, which says license required. That's it.
Okay. Doc? Anything?
No, I think it's well explained.
Jerry?
I'm good.
Rupert?
So Jill,
Yes.
what about keeping owner must reside on premises in there and add license required? So it's
So you certainly.
sort of redundant and duplicative, but not creating the impression that we're saying owner must not by striking it.
Yeah, but we're adding it to
But-
the top.
We're adding it to the definition.
I understand. I just was thinking in the use table, keeping it there as well, but. and
Wha-
just
Whatever the board's.
Adding license required.
Mhm.
Anyhow.
So, I'm just, the place over on Narragansett Avenue, that just opened last year. What's the name?
Surf Shack.
That's also a boarding house?
No, that's a hotel.
It is a hotel? Okay, it was a boarding house before it became a hotel.
It was a,
Questionable.
Going back.
yeah, it may have been a boarding house, it may have been a bed and breakfast, I can't recall off the
When
top of my head.
Peppers was in there.
It may have been both at one point. It's been around for a while, Mr. Callahan. that
Many of the
building.
above.
And that-
The only reason I raise it,
Yeah.
a place like the Surf Shack was a boarding house. My presumption is it's not owner occupied, but they might have a full-time manager there. That's all, that's in terms of the requirement to be owner occupied. That's the only reason why I raised it.
Right, so boarding home, mhm.
Boarding house is not in our
It doesn't require owner occupancy.
But I'm sorry, I'm looking at the bottom here. I thought Rupert just said.
That's for the tenant,
No, I'm just showing you that it was, and I'm showing you the
Yeah,
strikeout.
okay, all right, I apologize. Just as a matter of information,
Mhm.
do you happen to know, Joe, offhand, how many of each we have in town?
I don't, not off the top of my head.
My house this summer is beginning to feel
I
like
get that.
one of
I
them.
get that.
And it is
I feel-
owner occupied.
I feel your joy.
I kind of echo Rupert's. I don't mind having them in both places, so there's no question. No confusion, no chance of confusion, but, you know, I'll go with staff's recommendations. Okay. How does the board feel? Anybody have deep feelings for?
I don't.
No?
No?
I don't.
Okay.
No, we
So
could.
what do you need from us?
So I need you to review the staff findings, concur if you do, change if you don't, and then make a recommendation to council.
You have a recommendation?
I move that we, sorry, I move that we advance this draft change in the ordinance to town council with background information and staff findings adopted as the planning board findings.
Do I have a second?
Sorry.
All those in favor?
Before the
vote.
vote, I just want to clarify, Mr. Friday, Mr. Frady, are you making the recommendation for what is before you, or also considering the change to the table of use regulations?
Oh, including the change.
Including-
Include the change as shown?
As
or-
shown,
as
Or
shown.
Mr. Friday as, okay.
Yes.
Excellent.
You need a vote?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous.
I'm sorry, who was the second on that? Thank you.
Okay. All right, zoning tax amendments. Discuss possible actions to make recommendation to town council to address necessary tax revisions to comply with the recent General Assembly statutory changes. Again, staff has the floor.
Okay. There were several changes. There were
You're
several.
really gonna sit through
This
this.
makes more work for me, I'm glad about the confusion there.
It's only gonna change in 6 months anyway.
Oh, yeah.
There were several changes that took place in June of 2024, not to be confused with the changes that took place in January of 2024. Some of those changes from January are undone or revised again, so they were only in place for 6 months, or actually less than 6 months. I have broken this down just for clarification. I know you have it all, you all have it in front of you in the report that I provided to you, and I provided to you as the way I'm showing it right now, which is based by bill. So you know what changes, what each bill basically said, and then I provided you the draft ordinance. I'm just going to go through the bill first. So the first one is FAR, that's Senate Bill 3148. It basically removes basements from counting toward the calculation. So staff, we actually changed the basement definition to match the state. We changed the cellar definition to match the state, and we changed the basement to cellar definition in we changed the word basement to cellar in the floor aggregate or gross definition. So these are just definitional changes to comply with the state. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay. House Bill 7062, which is the ADU bill, so that changes the definition of accessory dwelling units. It set parameters and prohibitions on regulations. So we changed the definition of accessory dwelling unit. Ooh, it says basement in there, ignore that. To match the state, we added a section in our zoning ordinance, section 7.3, which is, I believe section 7.3 is accessory uses, section 736 to include the provisions in the new law. So the allowances by right, the restrictions, and the standards, and it's all in accordance with the state law. And we removed, this is one that I just want to take a minute to explain. We removed section 7A6, which is, it was a section for affordable accessory dwelling units. And that section was put in because previous to January 1st, we actually prohibited accessory dwelling units, but the town felt it was important to be able to allow structures that may have an accessory dwelling unit already in place to legalize or permit that, and they could have done that through the affordability component. So we've stricken this section and put in reserve just in case something comes up in the future. But because that section is no longer relevant, because ADUs are permitted by right and affordable accessory dwelling units are permitted by right under the parameters that we'll go through in a minute. So we just took that section right out. I left it similar to what we did for inclusionary zoning. I left it as a reserved just in case something happens in the future. We don't have to recreate that section. But that's why the entire section is stricken.
Jill, do you know why they, irrelevant, but why did they choose 62 years of age or older? Was that the age of menopause, Medicare?
I'm not sure, Dr. O'Neill, but it doesn't apply anymore. We'll go through it. That's been taken.
They took the 62-year-olds out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we'll get to actual changes. I'll show you. Okay, so same thing, household definition, that's 7382. Thank you. That changes the definition of household. We revised our definition of household to match the state definition, and we revised our definition for student occupied dwellings to mirror the state definition. House Bill 7949. So House Bill 7949 was an interesting one because it falls under subdivision regulations, but they made a couple of changes in that to the zoning enabling. So the subdivision changes we're going to take under separate cover. That is a public hearing just with this board. It doesn't go to council, and we're tackling first things first. So we're going to do the zoning ordinance. So we went through and we pulled out the changes that affect the zoning ordinance for this one. So right now, let's see, it revised the substandard, the way that the proportional calculation is set up for substandard lots of record. So before, the front side yard setback was set up so that the proportionality or the relief that you were granted was based on the underlying zone. So I think I gave the example last year that 7,500 square foot lot in an R80 zone was 90% deficient, and you could get a 90% proportional relief for your side yard setbacks, and that was real close. You may or may not recall that conversation. So they changed the law that said, in fact, what you would do now is you would go to the nearest complying zone. So that's not a good example for this conversation, but if you had an 11,000 square foot lot, you would go to an R10 zone because in an R80, because the 11,000 square foot lot is most compliant with an R10 zone. If you can't comply, in that case, 7,500, you would go to the underlying zone. They also changed the definition. They changed the way that you calculate, and they gave a mathematical example, which I didn't include because we were already doing the math according to the example. I didn't feel the necessity to include the math, that the lot coverage is still based on the underlying zone. So the text changes include, for that we changed the substandard lots of record to make those revisions. It also, Mr. Green, Changes, section 12.4.
New
That's
pool.
why I stayed.
Newton is dead. Finally. You can retire now, Jack.
It changes the way that special use permits and variances are reviewed together. So previous to this change, in the town's ordinance, we would allow an application to come before the zoning board and before you that needed both special use permit and a variance relief, but it was very specific. It was only for residential zone or residential uses, and it was only front, side, and rear setback relief, and only if that relief didn't put you closer to a coastal feature. Every other form of relief variance that was in conjunction with a special use permit sort of triggered that use variance standard, brought it up to the higher level. Not a real true use variance, but it triggered that no beneficial use standard. So this round, the state law, they were able to make that change and make it stick this time. And so we changed section 12.4 to comply. We struck out, we'll get there, but I strike out all of those provisions for front, side, rear setback, and add in their specific language, and it effectively removes the new law. And the last one is development plan review. So development plan review is goes into great detail in our subdivision regulations, and we will get there. But there is a section 17.3, which we just added last year, and this House Bill 7949 amends the applicability, so the ways in which DPR can be applied, the types of uses that DPR can be applied to. We just made those changes to comply.
Okay.
And the last one, manufactured homes. House Bill 7980. They added a definition for manufactured homes. Thank you. And we didn't actually have, well, we actually have a definition for manufactured homes. And by the way, we also have two definitions in our ordinance for basements. But for manufactured homes, we didn't have a definition in section 2.2. So we adopted the state definition and we placed it in section 2.2, which is under definitions. Manufactured homes and basements are also defined in section 4.7 of our ordinance, which is the special flood hazard overlay district. And those definitions came from model language that was provided through REMA from FEMA. And those definitions for manufactured homes and basements are different. So what I tried to do with this rendition is say, in this case, as used in this section, in section 2.2, because a basement is very different in a floodplain than it's defined, than it's used in FAR.
Right.
They're very different. Okay.
Doc?
Any questions, anything? Yeah?
Yeah,
I kind of say sarcastically whether it's stick-built or manufactured up in New Hampshire. But how about these double-wide units that get attached? Is that considered a manufactured home?
Yeah, I believe so, but they're allowed. They're currently allowed in town.
I would think, but they are.
Yep. Okay. All right.
Judy? Everybody good? Tom?
And we can go back to anything.
Tom? No,
Yeah.
Rupert? Sorry.
Yeah.
So two things. So in section 7.3 parenthesis 6, accessory dwelling units, B5 says EDUs shall not be offered or rented for tourist or transit use or through a hosting platform as such terms are defined in general laws. And the general laws define that as 30 days or less. And Airbnb and all these folks are renting for more than 30 days. So I think we ought to put in there, I mean, the idea of accessory dwelling units is to provide housing, year-round housing. So I think that we ought to have, add on there, if rented, must be a year-long lease.
I'm sorry, say that.
So right now,
What page you on?
There's not page numbers, so it's section
736.
736B5.
So I have everything up, the next slide.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you would indulge me for another.
Sure, oh, I'm sorry,
I'll make it real quick.
Okay,
I
I'm
know
sorry,
we're all
I
warm.
thought you were going to
Nope,
detail questions.
nope,
Okay.
Nope, so if you could just.
My
go to the next slide,
apologies.
please. No problem. Ooh, that's tiny. So these are the actual changes, these are the actual clips of the ordinance. So you can see everything in yellow is what we added. We added the new definition, thank you. And then we just struck out the old definition, so for ADU, it's in alphabetical order this time, or it's in alphabetical order in this section, but it's in section order in the ordinance. So I just wanted to show you in two ways, by bill and then the way it's shown in your draft. So we made the change for ADU, no problem. We made the change for basement, as you can see right there, as used in this section. Cellar previously just said C basement. We added in cellar, so to differentiate between the two. And that's the state definition, by the way. Household, if you scroll down just a little, yep, you can see right there. So we added, and that's the direct language from the state law, which says the maximum shall be 1 person per bedroom, not to exceed 5 unrelated persons per dwelling. The maximum shall not apply to NARA certified recovery residences. So next slide. Floor area aggregate gross. Right there you can see where we changed basement to cellar, and then we added in that last line which says basements are defined. So just as a note, that basement, that definition right there falls into the housing and maintenance and occupancy section of the state law. Building official pointed that out to me today. I thought that was interesting, not a regular definition section, it was a different code, but we put it in there. Manufactured homes is new, that's why it's in yellow, and we referred to, just so you know, again, as used in this section, and we referred to the US code. The definition was very long and lengthy and
Thank you.
cumbersome, but the code is there if you need it.
All right.
All right.
Can I ask, Joel, a little slow on the uptake here. This business of, first of all, maximum shall be 1 person per bedroom. And there are a lot of bedrooms that have more than 1 person. But then I see the number 5. Good.
Yes.
Don't we have ordinance that we wrestled with here? Couldn't come up with an agreement in terms of 3 or 4 unrelated living together?
Yes, we changed
Didn't I
those.
see 5?
It is 5, Doc.
That's what the state allows.
The state
Up to
mandates that.
The state is now mandating, so it says, the state law says the maximum shall be 1 person per bedroom and shall not exceed 5 unrelated persons per dwelling.
Yeah, so if you got a 3-bedroom house and you have, and it's actually easier, so a 3-bedroom house, you would have 3 unrelated, if you had 3, if you couldn't put 6 unrelated people in a 3-bedroom house, 4-bedroom, 5, and then 6 would be 5. So they capped it at 5.
They're living large, everybody has a 1 person in a bedroom.
Things have changed since your time, Doc.
Oh, good, yeah. Not all for the better.
They have color TV now.
If you remove. Okay, so the next one is the table of use regulations. So for accessory dwelling unit, this is what we just changed last in January. So I'm simply referring in the comment section under accessory dwelling units to refer to section 736, which we'll get to in a moment. And then very similar to the leaving it as reserved that I mentioned before, I'm leaving the affordable accessory dwelling unit as in the table of use regulations, making them all permitted and referring it to section 736. So then the next section is section 6.5. That's the modified dimensional regulations for the substandard lots. So these are the ones that I was just talking about, where they attempted, that the General Assembly attempted to clarify what they had done in January, was just adopted or took effect in January. And so they added in for where it was the setback frontage and lot width requirements shall be reduced by the same proportion to the minimum area for the zoning district, it now says the minimum building setbacks, frontage, and lot width requirements for a lot which is non-conforming in area shall be reduced by applying the building setback, frontage, and lot width requirements from another zoning district in the municipality in which the subject lot would be conforming to lot area. So 11,000 square foot lot in an R80 conforms with an R10. If the subject lot is not conforming as to the lot area in any zoning district in the municipality, the setbacks, frontage, and lot width shall be reduced by the same proportion as the substandard lot meets the minimum area of the district in which it's located. So in an 11,000 square foot lot and an R80, it would get the R10 setbacks, and then the proportionality would be, the proportionality? You would apply the proportionality to that.
No, I just, well, you could do, you get to, I mean, you get to pick, you get to choose.
You get to choose.
You get, yeah, you get to choose, either
Yeah.
you can
go
do
with
the,
the R10.
yeah, you can go to the proportionality, or you go.
Or you go to.
You go to the R10, and an
Right.
R10 is 10 side, 10
Right.
foot side yard setback.
Jill,
Yes,
I'm sorry, 11,000 square foot lot would be then compared to, and it was in a R80 would be compared to what?
an R10. It
R10.
complies with an R10.
So you
So
would
not an
do,
R20, it would be an R10.
Well, it wouldn't comply with an R20.
I know that.
yeah, so you would go to the R10 zone, and you look at our, or any town's table, and you look at the setbacks, because again, the proportionality didn't make any sense, because you would get a 1 foot setback or whatever. if
And
you-
how does it play for 10A?
10A,
Don't we have a 10A zone?
we do have 10A.
We do.
Right, that's what I'm asking.
Well, where is your lot?
I'm thinking about, it could be a lot in southern Narragansett.
So, but, so you would go to the 10 zone, you wouldn't go to the 10A zone, in my opinion. You wouldn't, your lot is in a, say it's in an
It's an
R40 zone,
It's an R80 zone.
R80 zone, and you have a lot that's how big?
Let's say it's 5,000 square feet.
5,000 square feet. So the nearest compliant zone would be the R10. I don't know if you'd ever get to what is not conforming.
If it's
So
not conforming to
conforming.
any zoning district, then the setbacks,
Shall reduce by the same proportion. Okay.
that is the lot area, then you revert back to the underlying
To the-
zone,
To the B,
To the R80.
to the area.
to the B,
R80, yep.
which is B. Essentially.
No, it's the second half of A. So all under A, it was much easier to read on my computer today when I'm sitting up real
That was
close.
also probably 9 hours ago.
Yeah, and you do have it in front of you, so I just want to point that out, you can read along. So under A, it refers to what we were just discussing, that you, if it's non-compliant, you would go to the next nearest closest zoning district of which the lot complies. 11,000 square foot lot complies with an R10, you would go to the R10 setbacks. But the last sentence says, and this is from the state law, if the subject lot is non-conforming as to lot area in any zoning district in the municipality, the setbacks, frontage, and lot width shall be reduced by the same proportion of that area of each substandard lot meets the minimum lot area for the district in which it's located.
So a 9,000 square foot lot in an R80 zone would go where?
I believe it would go back to the underlying zone.
Okay. And just because I'm not good at math, could you explain the next sentence to me? Maximum lot building coverage and the idea of inverse.
Yeah, so that's
inverse
B.
pro-
We're on B
inverse
now.
pro- Inverse proportion, whatever that means.
We're on B,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So it's the same math that we do, that we already do. So the law that was stricken says the maximum building coverage requirement for a structure under this section is increased by the same proportion as to the underlying zoning district by the substandard lot. The new law says that the maximum building coverage for lots that are non-conforming in area shall be increased by the inverse proportion of that area as such substandard lot meets the minimum requirements in the zoning district.
Right, and what I don't understand is what the inverse proportion is. What does that mean?
we believe that it means exactly the way we're doing the math, which is you would get, if you're a 10,000 or 7,500 square foot lot and an R80 again, it's a 90% deficiency. You would go back to getting 90% increase in the lot area for the underlying zone.
Did you say 9 or
90
90?
in that example.
You get 90%?
In that example,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm going off math we
So-
did a year ago.
So again, an area that was subdivided years ago, that has a series of lots, none of which are R80s, and all of which, and let's say the vast majority of them are less than 10,000 square feet. What does that mean in terms of the ability to densify that neighborhood?
Okay, so you have two different points in that question. Are you referring to lots of record? Or are you
Substandard-
referring to lots that have been merged through zoning?
Substandard lots of record.
So oftentimes in certain areas, those lots have already been merged through zoning. So that unmerger is that's a different animal we're not talking
Even the
about.
lots that have been merged, you won't find lots much more than 7,000, 8,000 square feet.
Okay, so what's the second half of the question again?
So under the theory of inverse proportion for maximum lot coverage or building coverage, and if you get 90% of that number, is that what you're telling me? So what does that mean?
In that example, Mr. Callahan, I just want to be very clear. Okay. Yeah, so in that example, because that to me it was an easy math example,
Yep.
it would be 90% of the underlying zone. So in that example, in an R80 zone, the lot coverage allowance in an R80 zone went from 10 to 9. So it would be 90% of 9%.
Yeah, Tom, and I think one of the things maybe the town in the future might want to look at is if you have an R80 zone or an R40 zone with lots that are 5, 10,000 square feet, maybe the zone should be changed.
Correct, correct. That's
Because
correct.
to
That's
reflect, we do this in Cranston all the time on Oaklawn Avenue. Oaklawn Avenue is residential, but at some point, we had to change the zone to reflect the reality
Facts of the
that
ground.
Oaklawn Avenue is commercial.
Right.
So at some point in the future, in certain areas where it was deemed A80 or A40, where the on the ground is more of an A10 or R10 or whatever we have here, or an R20, that may be to reflect the reality would then allow the setbacks to be more in conformance with what I believe the General Assembly wanted, which is you got a smaller lot, you get a little bit more setbacks rather than you got a smaller lot and you only get a foot on each side. So that might be something in the future which can be done for some of the neighborhoods that might not really conform to what's on the ground. But just a policy, that's not a legal, that's a policy decision
Yep.
on town
Yep.
council.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty, so section 7.36 accessory dwelling units. Rupert, I think this is where we are. We pick back up again together. So let me start by saying, so we take the state's definition of what, when an accessory dwelling unit is allowed by right, under those three conditions, which is an owner-occupied property as a reasonable accommodation for family members with disabilities, or on a lot with a total lot area of 20,000 square feet or more, for which the primary use is residential, or where the proposed accessory dwelling unit is located within the existing footprint of the primary structure or existing accessory attached or detached structure and does not expand the footprint of the structure. Those are the three types of ADUs that are allowed by right, and then there are the standards. The state law said that ADUs could be no less than 900 square feet or 90%. Staff has drafted this to take that minimum and make it the standard. That says a studio one-bedroom shall not be greater than 900 square feet. That was the minimum set by the state. We are setting it right now as the no more than 900 square feet or 60% of the floor area of the principal dwelling, whichever is less. And then that's for studio and one bedrooms. And again, the state law said that 2 bedrooms shall be at a minimum. They couldn't be any restricted to be any smaller than 1,200 square feet or 60% of the floor area. And staff has drafted this to say that they couldn't be, that minimum is what the town would allow. So those certainly you can edit those. All right, so then ADU shall not contain more than 2 bedrooms as defined in section 2, and that 1 off-street parking shall be required for each bedroom. That's compliant with our current ordinance. ADU shall not be offered or rented, and so Mr. Friday, this is where we left off, offered or rented for tourist or transit use through a hosting platform such as defined in Rhode Island general laws, which is, as Mr. Friday just pointed out, less than 30 days. And now I'll stop, Mr. Friday, if you...
So this is where I would suggest that we add a line saying that if an ADUs, because we want ADUs to be for housing, year-round housing. If you're gonna rent an ADU, has to be a year-long lease.
I've been chewing on this. On number 2, at the top, do we have any discretionary measures to say also require owner occupied on a lot with 20,000 square feet? Because that doesn't read that it has to be owner occupied.
We did talk about that internally. I believe there was an ADU bill that was drafted that put the language in. That bill did not get any traction. It didn't go.
The Senate version, which the planners worked on extensively with the senator who sponsored it, and the Senate version did not get adopted. The House version got adopted as introduced.
We have no discretion.
Yeah,
The owner occupied did not get.
Right.
Correct. Yeah, so it's just over 20,000.
Do we have discretion?
No.
Of course not. Okay, thank you. Good.
We good? Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so on 6, ADUs created under RIGL 4524 shall remain as an accessory use to a primary structure. So this is key. Shall remain as an accessory use to a primary structure and shall not be separated from the primary structure, separated through subdivision or sold by way of condominium creation, ground lease, or tenancy in common for other mechanism. It feels potentially redundant to say that because an accessory dwelling unit is by nature accessory to something else, which would be the primary use. But staff drafted the language, certainly with help of folks in the room, to try to make that real clear, that the accessory use shall not be separated off in any way, shape, or form. It shall always be attached to the primary use.
No, I think it's necessary.
This is what we ran into in Maryland group, working on accessory dwelling units and farms for farm staff. And this is, they were permitted, the farmer would subdivide them.
No, I like it.
And then C, this is language straight from the law, which says the ADUs are part of a larger development, that are part of a larger development, shall not be counted towards density of the proposal for purposes of limiting the number of dwelling units allowed. And that's language that we are, have been handed.
Okay.
There are other, I do want to say, if you took a look at the bill, there are other provisions and prohibitions and whatnot, but they were related to who you could rent to and who you could rent to. They didn't they weren't germane in the internal working groups. Conversations to add to this because they were things that were already part of the law or things we're already doing, you know, non-discrimination, things like that.
Yep.
Okay, so the next one is Dr. O'Neill. This gets to a question you had a minute ago, which was regarding the 5 unrelated people living. So section 7.23, which was recently added, recently added and amended a few times to our zoning ordinance. Student occupied dwellings located in R10, R10A, and R20 zone. This has been revised to reflect the state law change, which says now the maximum number of college students occupying a dwelling or dwellings shall be 1 student per bedroom and shall not exceed 5 students per dwelling.
Yep.
So we brought the 3 to 5, Dr. O'Neill.
I want to ask Steve this because I know it's going to come up. Does it need to be changed? Is it legal advice that it needs to be changed to 5 for the students as well?
We did do that somewhere.
It is,
Right here.
right, I'm just verifying that.
Yes, because of equal protection.
Just for the record, this board, I know Rupert didn't agree, but this board went for 4.
Mhm.
We struggled with that for a long time. But anyways, moving right on.
Section 7A6, I mentioned previously the affordable accessory dwelling units. I have stricken, proposing, or staff is proposing to strike the entire section and leave it as reserved because the new law makes it no longer necessary. ADUs are allowed by right.
Yep.
And ADUs are allowed by right. So that's a few pages. Alrighty, so section 12.4, special use permits, applicability. This is the Newton law, which we were just mentioning a couple of minutes ago. So if you go down to that second large paragraph at the bottom, it used to say the zoning board or under unified development may grant a dimensional variance from the front, side, and rear setbacks from 6.4 to 6.5 for a single-family dwelling accessory structures in conjunction with a special use permit, provided it does not have the effect of allowing the structure to be closer, as described in sections 4.3 and 4.4 to an environmental feature. The law change, it was an actual very simple change. It's right at the bottom where it says each respective. So we left all of the other language, but then at the last sentence where it says shall consider the special use permit and the dimensional variance together to determine if the special use permit is appropriate based on each respective special use criteria and dimensional variance evidentiary standards. So you'll take them separately now and not combine them together to get to that higher standard. And then we struck also, in no event shall this increase the footprint or size of a dwelling otherwise allowed in the overlay district. The last one is section 17.3, development standards for development plan review. And most of that is the same. When you get to the applicability, they, on letter E, under institutional development, they had institutional development design review for educational and hospital facilities, and they struck design review, and they removed development in a historic district. So those are the changes in a nutshell. If we go back to the report, I just want to point out a few things. And the report itself, where we are, where we're trying to look at consistency with the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance. As I previously mentioned, there is an inconsistency with the definition of basement and the definition of manufactured home. We tried to remedy that discrepancy by adding as used in this section, because the language that came from FEMA is different, and in a floodplain, basements are the definition of basement is much more stringent, much more strict. Just by way of example, definition of basement is anything, 1 foot or below grade on the outside, so it doesn't matter how low. So we found that it was in compliance certainly with land use goal number 1, which talks about, making changes to the ordinance and updating and regulating, review and updating regulations in light of new developments. So that's what we're doing here. The building land use facilities, it does appear to that it would still comply, that it would comply with the building. You'll get your question, go for it.
No, I want to suggest an addition to that
Yes.
piece. I think the by right ADUs increase demand on sewer and water infrastructure.
One more time?
The by right ADUs increase demand on sewer and water infrastructure, which I think is consistent to our finding when we were looking at the duplex issue.
Yes. Where did you want me to add that, Mr.
I would put it on page 4.
Under land and water resources?
Under land and water, land use and facilities, buildings, land use and facilities.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Under buildings, land use and
No,
facilities.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I just would add a sentence at the end.
So add to the strain on water, sewer, and infrastructure?
Yeah.
Okay. And then staff went through the purposes of zoning and pulled out all of the relevant components of zoning that these text amendments comply with. And that's where we are.
Mr. Chairman, looking for a motion.
Oh, yeah. Going to give her a breath. And how do you want us to handle this? Do we need a motion?
Do you have any questions? I mean,
No, I think this was laid out. Anybody have any questions? I think everybody exhausted it.
Beautiful done.
Yeah.
How do you want, we
Like to acknowledge.
move on all of them?
well, I didn't want to interrupt.
I just want to acknowledge Jill did a Herculean job
Oh, God, yeah.
pulling together all these different laws and reading them together in a short time. I mean, we're doing this in July, and last year we were doing this in October, November.
October. Okay. Yeah. So same as the. I can't tell if he's saying
Keep
it.
going, Bob.
He's saying it.
Motion to endorse the report and adopt the findings as its own and recommend it to the town council?
Do
Something
I have a
like that?
second?
So are you accepting the findings, making them your own, and then recommending to town council?
Right.
Yes,
Yeah. With the addition.
with the additions.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll second that.
Who made it?
I did.
Tom.
Tom made it. Do you need anything more? You all set there?
I'll say.
Okay. So I have a motion, I have a seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous. All right. Last, reports from staff, board, assistant solicitor.
No.
No. Okay, this is everybody's favorite part. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a seconded?
I second.
Who objected? Do I have a second?
Yes. I
None?
second that.
Non-debatable under Robert's Rules of Order. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Nice job, everybody.
There were
We have time to go out.